Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today, Rahul Gandhi has said that the Chinese have snatched away thousands of kilometers of Indian territory around the LAC. But let's take you back to 2017. This is a picture taken at the height of Doklam crisis. While our braves were giving a bloody nose to the Chinese PLA, Rahul Gandhi and Priyanka Gandhi Vadra and Robert Vadra were having a secret meeting with the Chinese envoy. The BJP has pointed to this and has asked who really patronized China. The latest flashpoint for this face-off has been Prime Minister Modi drawing a Lakshman Rekha for the dragon on the sidelines of the BRICS Summit. Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping met over the boundary row. India dug in its heels, with Prime Minister Modi insisting that bilaterals are contingent on peace at the border and a request for disengagement and de-escalation. However, the opposition, led by Rahul Gandhi, has lashed out at the Prime Minister, saying that China is allowed to squat on India's land by this government. Listen in to the opposition's charge.
हजारों किलोमीटर जमीन हिंदुस्तान की चाइना ने हमसे छीनी है और दुख की बात है कि हिंदुस्तान के प्रधानमंत्री ने ऑपोजिशन की मीटिंग में कहा कि हिंदुस्तान का 1 इंच किसी ने नहीं लिया है। यह सरासर झूठ है। लद्दाख का हर व्यक्ति इस बात को जानता है कि लद्दाख की जमीन चाइना ने हिंदुस्तान से ली है।
हिंदुस्तान को दृढ़ता के साथ चीन पर दबाव बढ़ाना चाहिए और जो हजारों मील चाइना ने भारत से हड़पे हैं उन पर एक तार्किक समझौता हो।
Chinese Foreign Ministry releases a statement and says that this meeting happened at the request of our Prime Minister. My question is, why is our Prime Minister running after this Chinese President? And why is the BJP keeping the nation in dark about what is happening in Ladakh? I demand that a special session of the parliament should be called by the ruling party.
हम चीनी राष्ट्रपति के पीछे पीछे भाग रहे हैं कि हमें बात कर लो, हमसे बात कर लो, मामला सुलझा लो, और वे सुलझा नहीं रहे हैं। तो नुकसान हमारा है क्योंकि इस वक्त चीन हमारी जमीन पे बैठा हुआ है। तो हमको G20 से पहले चीन से 2 टूक बात करनी चाहिए।
The BJP, however, has reminded the Congress party that Rahul Gandhi went to meet the Chinese ambassador at the height of Doklam crisis and its own history with China. Listen in.
तो मुझे समझ में नहीं आता है कि राहुल गांधी जी को बार बार चीन की बातों पर इतना प्यार क्यों उमड़ आता है। और मजे की बात यह है कि ये जो लोग हैं ये स्वतः एक्सपोज हो रहा है, क्योंकि चाइनीज कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी के साथ जो उनका एग्रीमेंट हुआ उन्होंने नहीं बताया था। चाइना से फोटो आई थी। डोकलाम के समय इन्होंने चीन के राजदूत के साथ जो खाना खाया था इन्होंने नहीं बताया था, वहां से फोटो आई थी।
राहुल गांधी बार बार ये झूठ बोलते हैं कि चीन ने भारत की किसी जमीन के ऊपर कब्जा किया। आज फिर उन्होंने लद्दाख में जाकर ये झूठ बोला। ये पहली बार नहीं है राहुल गांधी ने ऐसी चीन की भाषा बोली है। ये ऐसा क्लेम कभी चीन भी नहीं कर पाया, ऐसा क्लेम कभी लद्दाख के लोगों ने भी नहीं क्लेम किया। ये केवल और केवल जो बॉर्डर पर हमारे सैनिक बैठे हैं उनका मनोबल तोड़ने का काम किया जा रहा है।
But has China backstabbed us repeatedly in the past? Has Congress's concessions cost India? Here are some facts that we need to know. In 1950, Prime Minister Nehru gifted the UNSC seat to China. Those are the words of the BJP. But till date, India is now seeking permanent membership. In 1954 Panchsheel Treaty that was signed, India formally called Tibet as a region of China, and 3 months later, China violated the Ladakh border. In 1962, China wrested 20% of the disputed land in Aksai Chin. In 1996, JDS government signed a pact of not to carry arms near the LAC, which later led to 20 of our braves clubbed by death by China at Galwan. Several other reports have come in that under the UPA regime, China captured other areas, even setting up 13 cement huts on Dem Chowk. So, ladies and gentlemen, really, what is the real situation in China and India, LAC, and at the border brings us to the legitimate question. And the question is, Chinese wall leads to a red fort? That's the question, and that's the debate coming up on the other side.
You're watching the News Hour at 9. Debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
Joining me on the debate tonight, Dr. Sudhanshu Trivedi, Member of Parliament and National Spokesperson of the BJP, will join us in just a minute. Ishkaran Bhandari, Advocate in the Supreme Court. Sushant Sarin, Senior Fellow at the ORF. Dr. Fuad Halim, Spokesperson of the CPIM. Waris Pathan, National Spokesperson of the AIMIM, joining us in a bit. Tehseen Poonawala, Political Analyst, supports the Congress Party. And Tehseen Poonawala, it is to you that I pose my first question. Is there politics in the statement that is being made by Mr. Rahul Gandhi, or has he got in his hands a certain secret report which he is now beginning to believe that thousands of kilometers of land has been taken away by China? I'm asking you this question because the Prime Minister has made a statement on the floor of the House. If that statement's not correct, the opposition has the right to move a privilege motion. Why is this narrative being built outside Parliament when there is a huge achievement that India has done through Chandrayaan? There is the BRICS Summit where India's stature has increased, and there is the G20 coming up in a short while from now. At such a time, does politics necessitate a counter narrative, and that's what the opposition is doing?
The 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council were decided in 1945 at the end of World War II. I'm just fact-checking the BJP and their lies. And from 1949 to 1972, this permanent membership was held by Taiwan, not by China. China only came in 1972. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru died in 1964. When the BJP lies, they must be called out for their lies. Now let's come to the second part. The most honorable Prime Minister, and I don't say the BJP is against our country, said, "Na koi aaya tha, na koi aa sakta hai. Agar koi aaya nahi tha, hamare 20 veer shaheed kyun hue?" That means someone had come. It is our brave army that killed 300 of the Chinese soldiers, but 20 of our soldiers were martyred because somebody had come. That leads me to my third point. In 2020, when the Chinese were doing military operations in Ladakh, just as India does every year military operations in Ladakh, India was not doing military operations. 19 satellite images were sent of the military built up with China. Now we are mirroring China mirror to mirror, and 3 months later we built it. But the first Chinese security meet only happened in May after the build up, which led to the martyrdom of our 20 soldiers. And my last point, the DGP of Ladakh in a DGP conference put out the report that out of the 65 PP points, patrolling points, 23 India has no access to. That report was withdrawn. I'm asking all of you all on this panel, have we given up our claim, for example, on Finger 8, which we can't patrol, which we used to patrol until 2020? Some of the patrolling points where we can't patrol now, have we given up our claim? If we call this a buffer zone, whose buffer? Is India given up her claim? Isn't this a loss for India? How can the government lie? One last point. In Bali G20, I quote Times of India, the Honorable Prime Minister said, and Times I quoted him, that it was only pleasantries with Xi Jinping. Now, Times of India also says it went beyond pleasantries. Why is the government of India lying to us? If the Prime Minister spoke to Xi Jinping, it's fine. He has a right to speak to him. But why would you lie to us, the citizens of India? That's the question that is being asked.
Sudhanshu Trivedi, has the Indian government lied to the people of India as alleged by Tehseen Poonawala? That's the question on the table today.
We can easily understand
that the intent of the Congress party is very clear. From हिंदी चीनी भाई भाई का प्यार से लेके आज कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी के साथ हुआ करार तक, इसीलिए इनको भारत सरकार से ही तकरार करनी रहती है. They are unable to have any confidence on the statement of the army, on the statement of the defense ministry, on the statement of the foreign ministry, even on the statement of China. I am unable to. China is saying that India has intruded into their space. For the first time, China is saying this. It has never been before. And to the extent of who is lying and who is saying correct, in Galwan, 20 of our soldiers got martyred in hand-to-hand fight. And China has not even released the list of a single soldier who was even wounded. How illogical, ridiculous claim can be that 20 persons died in hand-to-hand fight, and forget about dying, none of the other from the other side is even wounded. Even the Russian agency TASS has said the 44 Chinese died. The European sources said the 60 Chinese died. But they are having faith on that China which has given this type of statistics, and that China whose foreign minister Qing Dang has disappeared and there is no news. Then they will quote the report that in press freedom index China is above India. So I am unable to understand why you are having so much of apathy for India and sympathy from China. And Navika ji, I would like to quote that Tahsin ji has said that in 1972 China, yes, of course, it is been very much there in the time of Dwight Eisenhower to John F. Kennedy, that America was hell-bent upon giving the seat for India because they were against any communist country to get the seat. They were very much there in favor that India should perform the nuclear test, and India was in the capacity of performing nuclear test in 1960, which is very much clear from the Dwight Eisenhower presidential archive. And as per the John Kenneth Galbraith, then ambassador at the time of Jawaharlal Nehru in 1961, again India was in a position, but Nehru withdrew. And again I would like to re-emphasize with जो हमने आज प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस में कहा था, सिर्फ डोकलाम में खाना नहीं खाया है चीन के साथ. 21 जून 1952 को नेहरू जी की प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस है कि जब तिब्बत में चीन की फौज ने आके कब्जा कर लिया था तो उनको आपने चावल सप्लाई किए ताकि वो तिब्बत में रह सके. और ये प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस में उन्होंने बाकायदा ये लिखा हुआ है कि साहब ये जरूरी था चीन की सेना के लिए ताकि वो जिंदा रह सके. वैसे हम ये चाहते हैं कि वो तिब्बत से अलग हो जाने चाहिए. शर्म आनी चाहिए कि खाना खाया नहीं था, खाना खिलाया भी था. और ये बात मैं ऐसे नहीं कर रहा हूं, कंप्लीट वर्क्स ऑफ जवाहरलाल नेहरू सीरीज 2 वॉल्यूम 18 में इसका बाकायदा नेहरू जी का स्टेटमेंट, उनकी प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस का डेट है 21 जून 1952. So sir, when Rahul Gandhi ji or Congress party try to speak about the past and particularly about the China, उनको सोच लेना चाहिए. But I want that they are not speaking because of ignorance. They are speaking because of a nefarious design. And maybe when the subtype of news comes that the news click is getting support from Shanghai to Chicago by the propaganda department of the Communist Party of China, and then they are getting their voice echoed by Congress party here, then the cloud of suspicion becomes darker and darker and darker as far as the India's national security and integrity is concerned, and the role of Congress party in that.
Well, huge allegation coming your way, Tehseen.
Yes, just one second. Sudhanshu ji, with a lot of respect, if Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru passed away in 1964, China only came in 71, and 45, the first 5 permanent members are made. How did Nehru withdraw? Can you show on this show any document saying that Nehru withdrew? Because I can show you Nehruji's speech in Parliament that some rumors have come. We've got no official confirmation, but you use the word on Times Now that Nehru withdrew this invitation. Can you show any document where Nehru withdrew the invitation? Because the invitation only came after 71.
Sudhanshu ji.
Please.
Now can I reply?
Sure.
Actually what happened, sir, मैं आपको बताना चाहूंगा. There were several documents which has come into existence because there were several documents which were deleted by the Nehru government. But unfortunately, when America declassified those documents in 2010, then the thing came. On 18th of November 1962, the letter which was written by Nehru on support to America was shameful. And it was nowhere in the document of the government of India, but it has come in the declassified document by US in 2010. और खैर छोड़िएगा उस बात को, और इस बात का उल्लेख तो विजय लक्ष्मी पंडित, who was the first chairman or the first woman chairman of the UN Security Council, UN General Assembly, and she was also the sister of Jawaharlal Nehru. उनके पर्सनल जो लेटर्स हैं उनमें आप देख लीजिएगा, कंप्लीट वर्क्स ऑफ जवाहरलाल नेहरू उसमें भी हैं, जिसमें वो कह रही हैं ऐसी ऐसी सिचुएशन है. बट नेहरू जी हैज मेंशन्ड कि चीन से संबंधों की कीमत पर हम यह नहीं चाहते हैं. And you were very well knowing that why China waited for 1772, because US was not ready to give this China a permanent seat. That's why till 1972 it was with Taiwan. And repeatedly they tried.
Well,
India should
let me get in Mr. Waris Pathan. Mr. Waris Pathan. Now, Congress has an objection. Rahul Gandhi says thousands of kilometers have gone to China. On the other side, we have Mr. Asaduddin Owaisi, who believes the Chinese more than he believes the Indian Prime Minister himself. The Chinese have put out that India sought the meeting, so Mr. Asaduddin Owaisi is convinced that the Chinese always speak the truth. I want to ask you, Mr. Waris Pathan, once again, for politics, is this how low can we go even on issues of national security?
No, my point, Navika, is this. Why Prime Minister Modi is afraid of China? Why does he not show his red eye or that 50 signatures to China? The Chinese officials have said that Modi requested them to have a meeting. Since 2020, we have got 19 rounds of meeting with China. What happened to that? Nothing. And what today we are saying is more than 1,000 acres of land has been occupied by the Chinese. They have entered into our places. Arunachal Pradesh, we have seen the video which was viral where the people say that they also made villages, they are building bridges. They have entered that. The American satellites are showing the picture. The pictures are everywhere. Videos are everywhere. Then why not the Prime Minister direct our soldiers? I know our soldiers are brave. We salute to our brave soldiers. They have got the power and the enthusiasm. They can very well defeat the Chinese. They can remove them and reclaim our land. But why Modi is silent on that? Why does he not talk about the more than 50,000 soldiers are stationed there at the border since last more than 2 years? They have made a buffer zone. Now, whose place is the buffer zone? What is the situation there? That is why we demand and we ask, why does Prime Minister Modi not hold a special parliamentary session? Let that be discussed. Let the entire nation know what is the country's policy towards China's aggression, because this is the national security problem. We all are concerned about that. We are worried about our soldiers. Earlier also 20 of our soldiers were martyred in Galwan. We cannot forget that. But Modi is silent. Modi is lying to the nation that कोई एक कीच नहीं घुसा है, ना कोई घुसा है, ना घुसेगा. Whereas the situation is different. The fact is different from what he is saying. So we want a parliamentary session especially on this aspect, that what is India's policy? What are we going to do to reclaim our land which is illegally occupied by the Chinese? That is why the nation wants to know. We are asking that, sir, please don't go behind China. We are Bharat, we are India, we are powerful nation. Now we have also landed on Chandrayaan, South Pole, which nobody went. So being a prime minister of that nation, you have to show aggression. You have to direct our soldiers.
No, so what do you want? What do you want that, we should take our times and start attacking China?
The Chinese.
No, are you saying that war is the best option? Sushant Sarin, वारिस पठान जी ने कह दिया है अब टैंक लेके निकल जाते हैं, अब वहां पर लद्दाख में मिलेंगे और वहां पर we'll start the war. Is it as simple as Mr. Waris Pathan is making it out to be?
Earlier also our soldiers have crashed them black and blue. We all saw them. 300 plus Chinese were killed, they were injured.
Okay, so here is the thing. I'm very glad that I live in a country like India, which is a democracy, and it is a decision of war and peace is not going to be taken by the Indian Army or the Indian Armed Forces. It will be taken by a civilian government, and it will be taken keeping in mind all our priorities, not just our developmental priorities, our economic priorities, and all sorts of others. We are not a Pakistan that some two-bit general will start taking a decision on whether we will fight a war or we will not fight a war. Number one. Number two, I think I need to clarify a couple of things. Some of the points which Tehseen raised, and I think that will go into the questions which you have also raised. Although I agree with what Mr. Rahul Gandhi said, the thousands of kilometers of Indian territory have been taken. Only Mr. Rahul Gandhi did not specify when they were taken. They were taken in the times of Pandit Nehru and subsequently. So I wish he had clarified when exactly those thousands of kilometers of Indian land was occupied by China. But on the build-up, which Tehseen raises routinely in every program whenever we are discussing this. See, the thing was that every year in the summer months, there used to be exercises from the Chinese side. The Chinese would do exercises and they would bring in troops to carry out exercises on their side of the line of actual control. The Indians would do similar exercises. That was partly as a kind of a precaution because the Chinese troops were going to be exercising and there was a build-up on the Chinese side. There would be a build-up on the Indian side. In 2020, what happened was, because of COVID and because there were COVID protocols and the information, there was no secret information which was coming. This was standard information that yes, the Chinese build-up is taking place, and this was been happening for years on end. Every year it used to happen. I think there was, and I would even go to the extent of saying there was an error of judgment. People thought that, okay, they are doing the exercises, we will observe the COVID protocols and we will not build up a mirror build up, and which was also an exercise, but it was also to make sure that there was nothing untoward which happened from the Chinese side. I think that was an error on our part, and the Chinese came very much in front. Number two, on this whole issue of the Prime Minister's statement, you know, very often we forget the context in which the statement was made. The statement was made in the context of the clash which took place in Galwan. It was purely on the issue of Galwan, where the Prime Minister said that nobody has entered and nobody has taken any part of our territory. And the entire clash was that somebody who tried to enter into our territory was expelled, right? So I hope that is clear, because every time and routinely, you know, people keep raising this. Number three, Tehseen asked, what about our claims? I think just because we have entered into tactical arrangements on a variety of areas where there is a conflict or a situation of conflict right now, that does not mean that we have given up our claims. Have you seen the Indian border change and we've excluded Aksai chain or any of the areas? I don't think we have done that. So as long as we maintain the borders in our maps, it is very clear that our claims on the entire part of the territory which we consider to be our own and which has been occupied by China, that those claims are not going to go. Now, whether it's Finger 8 or whether it's any other part. On the issue of buffer zones, I agree that should we have agreed to the buffer zones, but then buffer zones are for both sides. If the Chinese were patrolling up to a certain point, they can't do that because of the buffer zone, just as we can't do it. I as an individual, I do not agree with this whole buffer zone concept. I believe that whatever was the LAC or our perception of the LAC, we should be able to patrol up to those points. And there are some parts of the LOC where we cannot patrol anymore, partly because the Chinese are blocking access. Blocking access effectively means that they are not allowing us to go into what we consider to be our part of the LAC. And to that extent, I think it's something to be worried about. And finally, on this whole issue of red eye, you know, Waris, you know, it is one thing to be standing in a public forum and, you know, making a political speech and aankh se aankh milake. That's one way of talking. In the diplomatic field, you don't speak that language, ideally. Right? The fact of the matter remains, and it's not even important who asked for a meeting. Just because you asked for a meeting does not mean that you are, you're pleading before somebody or you are a supplicant before somebody. It doesn't mean that. That's not the way diplomacy operates. And according to the Indian side, I think they've clarified. The Chinese had put in many requests. This time the Indians accepted their request and the meeting went forward. Okay? So maybe we said that, okay, fine, you had put in a request. Do you want to have a meeting? They said yes. Just as if we ask for a meeting, obviously if the Chinese are talking to us, even they want to talk to us. Now, otherwise, why would Xi Jinping want to talk to the Prime Minister? In any case, from the Indian side, it is said that it was an informal meeting. And the Indians have clarified that there was a very candid conversation, something even with the Chinese statement carries. Candid conversation, the diplomatic language, in diplomatic language means that a very frank conversation happened where we put our demands on the table, and the Chinese would
absolutely, absolutely. And
So
Tehseen Poonawalla, before you go all red in the face, may I tell you that in a Rajya Sabha answer on 22nd of November 2012, this is what
I myself quoted it.
This is what E. Ahmed said. Let me then also tell you, Rahul Gandhi, is he trying to suggest that all the land only went during the BJP regime? E. Ahmed has said 38,000 square kilometers went, when the Congress was in power. Even the UPA acknowledged illegal occupation by China in the Indian territory. And in 2014, the Union Home Ministry in a Parliament question reply said there were 1,612 transgressions that took place by China between 1st of January 2010 and 4th of August 2014. 210, 334 cases, 411 in 13, 426 in 2012, 213 in 2011, 228 in 2010. तब आपकी लाला कहाँ चली गई थी, तहसीन जी?
So there are two parts to it. First of all, just let's assume that, and I agree that Congress did lose we did lose territory to China in 40s and 60s. I agree to that. So just because the Congress lost it when we were
only in the 60s? Only in the 60s?
The other part, please allow me to finish. The other part, there have been transgressions and China has gone back. In fact, there have been more transgressions in the NDA era than in the UPA era. And the UPA has been transparent about it. That's not the issue. Transgression is not the issue. The issue today is us being misled. As Sushantji rightly spoke about, it doesn't matter who asked for a meeting. But at G20 Bali, we were misled. We were told they only exchanged pleasantries. There's no problem the Prime Minister spoke to Xi Jinping. Then China clarified, no, they had a substantial talk which Times of India carried. Why are you misleading people? Number two, if we've lost access, if there's a buffer zone, now here's the question, if there's a buffer zone and China's come into our territory, the buffer zone should apply to us. Then what is status quo ante? They've come, we've not gone into their territory.
Sudhanshuji is responding. Sudhanshuji.
First thing I would like to answer in sequence. Tehseen ji, the land has not gone in 1962. 6th of June 1957, a news appeared in Chinese media that they have built up a road in Indian side of Aksai chain. On 3rd of February 1958, the then Foreign Secretary, because at the time this department was not under defense, Foreign Secretary writes to Nehru ji, it is now proven, confirmed. Then on 4th of February 1958, I'm not talking about 62, mind it, 58. Nehru said, we will try to solve out this matter amicably and some informal channels with China. And after it is been duly confirmed by the government of India that they've been included in our territory, is still in December of 1959, Nehru pleaded for permanent seat of China in UN. And in April 1963, Mao got 5-day visit in Delhi with great pomp and show. Sir, what you are talking about? 2 साल पहले आपकी सरकार बता चुकी है और उसके बाद आज आप बात कर रहे हैं. पहले मैंने आपको चीन की वो तो बता ही दिया कि आपने उनको चावल खिलाए थे. इसलिए मैं कहना चाह रहा हूं, these were not the blunders. It seems to be a wound, and that is been on the Indian soil just for one person to become tall and he wants to become the messiah of peace in the eyes of the global powers, even at the cost of India. Now coming today, in 2009, there was a news that China has intruded. The government not only countered then government by saying that it has been overplay, even the FIR was registered on the journalist. Sir, what you are talking about at the time? And today, look what we have done under leadership of Sri Narendra Modi. On Article 370, China ने एड़ी चोटी का जोर लगा लिया, एक बित्ता नहीं ला पाया यूनाइटेड नेशंस में. मसूद अजहर को उन्होंने पूरी कोशिश कर ली, हमने आतंकवादी घोषित करा लिया. शंघाई कॉर्पोरेशन के रिजोल्यूशन में टेररिज्म और टेररिज्म के सपोर्ट का इशू आ गया, चाइना ने पूरी कोशिश कर ली, नहीं रोक पाया. न्यूक्लियर सप्लाई ग्रुप, जिसके लिए मनमोहन सिंह जी की सरकार ने भी प्रयास किया था, ईमानदारी से बात कर रहा हूं, उसमें वी बिकेम मेंबर, चाइना कुडंट स्टॉप. मिसाइल टेक्नोलॉजी कंट्रोल रिजिम, वी बिकेम मेंबर एंड चाइना कुडंट स्टॉप. और आज आपसे पूछना चाहता हूं, कैन यू नेम 3 countries who are diplomatically with China? Only 2, North Korea and Pakistan. North Korea and Pakistan. Look at the map of China. On one side is Pakistan, and the other side of North Korea. झूला झूल रहे हैं. North Korea, Pakistan. You kindly name 2 more countries which are with China. The fact of the matter is China is passing through its worst
China just did the
diplomatic
Iran-Saudi Arabia
isolation
deal.
post Tiananmen Square, which has been accepted by China.
Sir, China just did the Iran-Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia is having
Iran,
Saudi Arabia is now entering into
did
relation with Israel, and you are thinking it's about because of China. Sir, what you are talking about, sir?
China played.
You name a single instance on which diplomatically any country has taken the side of China.
And may I tell you,
Saudi Arabia is entering into new era with Israel.
When Tehseen Poonawalla, when you raised the question, did we share pleasantries or did we have substantial talks? Why don't I show you the picture of Mr. Rajiv Gandhi in 1988 raising a toast to the then president of China?
When is this picture after? When is this picture after? Let me tell your viewers. This is after operation. This is after, I'm forgetting the name of the operation. Chinese had the most number of casualties. India put up its soldiers at Arunachal. Rajiv Gandhi declared Arunachal as a state. China had a built up, they had to withdraw. And did the most number of casualties.
They withdrew, and then there was toasting. There was toasting. Cheers to that.
They came in that.
Except India
Navika ji.
Without the bullet being fired.
Navika ji.
Sudhanshu ji.
In Samdurang Chu Valley, China has entered and made the helipad. During Rajiv Gandhi's time, in the Samdurang Chu Valley of the Tawang district, China has made helipad. I think Sushant Sarin ji will be knowing about this fact. And then it was accepted by then government. अरे साहब हेलीपैड बना दिया था उसके जमाने में जो आपने बोला ना अच्छी बात है हाँ हमने लड़े थे फिर हमने उनको पीछे किया था आपको पता ही नहीं लगा था हेलीपैड बना लिया था.
Well, let me get in Dr. Fuad Halim. He's been waiting for his turn. Dr. Fuad Halim. Dr. Fuad Halim, there is a charge that is coming that a narrative is being built against the government at a time when India has huge achievements to showcase to the world. Chandrayaan's landing, Chandrayaan success to reach the moon, South Pole, the fact that BRICS, conference has given India a huge stature upliftment. On the other side, the G20 coming around the corner. And it's just political narratives that are being set so that when the elections come, the BJP government and Prime Minister Modi cannot tom-tom India's achievements on the global issues. Rather, questions on China may be raised. Is China now a political tool leading into the 2024 elections?
Well, Navika, it's very clear that the Prime Minister of India chose to have a conversation with the #1 man of China on the sidelines of this conference, BRICS conference that was going on yesterday. So it's the Prime Minister who's made that choice. One has to be very clear, and he has been advised by his advisors to actually speak to and have a conversation with the #1 man of China. Now, one has to keep things in context. You know, the Prime Minister of India went over to China in 2015, and in the middle of May, he made a very categorical statement on the question of how border disputes have to be resolved. This is Narendra Modi's words. We might choose to go very back in history, but let us come into recent history. On the 6th of June 2020, you had a commanders meeting. The Chinese commanders were there, the Indian commanders were there, they had a meeting. And we had this incident on the 15th of June where we lost 20 of our army Jawans, and including the commanding officer of a unit, a high-ranking military official in the incident that took place on the 15th of June. On the 16th of June, the CPIM made a categorical demand to the Prime Minister and the Government of India that the Government of India and the Prime Minister should come out with an authoritative statement to the people of India categorically stating what happened in Galwan. We are in 2023, we are discussing everything, but what actually happened in Galwan, the Government of India, nor the members who are there in the cabinet, nor the Prime Minister has found it important to describe to the people of India. That is where we are. On the 17th of June 2020, we got the Foreign Minister of India and the Foreign Minister of China speak over telephone. and they say that we are going to resolve this in a positive manner, in a peaceful manner. I don't know whether the Bharatiya Janata Party is on the same page with the foreign minister of the government of India, because they seem to have a different, what you call, tract on, and very, very different. It's kind of concerning for me that I see that the BJP tongue and language is very different from what the government of India and Narendra Modi at times speaks and at times turns his back around. You know, he said red eyes, well and done. When he was Prime Minister, we've seen that the government, many a time the government outperforms the political requirements within the boundaries of India and actually plays to what is necessary on the international front. So we've got serious people who are saying that we need to resolve it peacefully, and we've got the BJP over here now upping the ante. One has to be very clear that the land, it was very interesting to hear you speak, Navika, when you said that China took up 20% of the disputed land. Navika, you didn't say Indian land. So it's very clear that even Times now on the editorial board is changing their language a bit. You said disputed land. I'm saying it's very interesting. I'm noticing that about you. Now, one has to be very clear that this what you call dichotomy between the BJP and the government of India, that the BJP and the Prime Minister have to resolve. What is their actual position?
Well, and on that statement, you know, several people are raising their hands and some are laughing. Sushant Sarin, why are you laughing at the allegation made by Dr. Fuad Halim at me?
No, because I think it's a completely superfluous kind of a thing that he's speaking. I don't know what exactly this kind of hair splitting that he's doing.
Do you have the authority
Maybe Mr. Fawad
the government of India on Galwan?
Well, he's a strategic expert who works in that area. Certainly,
you have an authoritative statement exactly what happened in Galwan.
Well,
you're a senior person. Do you have that statement with you? Do you know exactly what the government of India describes as to what happened in Galwan, where 20 of our military personnel were lost?
Sushant Sarin.
I've heard very many accounts of what exactly happened, but of course you're right. It's a fact.
I'm asking, do you have the government of India's position on it?
Can I complete, or are you such a big communist that you won't let anybody else speak?
Yeah, please. Thank you.
Can you at least hear me? I was about to say that there is no white paper or an authoritative statement which the government has issued. And I have nothing against the government issuing it. In fact, I think it will be good if a government was to issue a statement on this issue. And frankly, I don't have a problem if the government was even going to debate this matter in Parliament. If we can develop a kind of a national consensus on taking on China economically, on stopping many of the kind of economic relations that we have with the Chinese, decoupling, or the word which is used these days, de-risking ourselves by being very close to the Chinese economically, I have no problem with that. I don't know if Mr. Halim, because of the adherence and the kind of loyalties they have towards the Chinese, whether they will accept it, that India pulls away from the communist China and completely starts decoupling itself. I don't know. Maybe he should tell us what their position is going to be as far as China is concerned. Again, secondly, I have nothing against trying to solve a matter peacefully. And I think it is important that the government has ensured that there is adequate force levels along the line of actual control in Ladakh as well as on the Eastern Front to ensure that there is no adventurism from the Chinese side. And having achieved that, if the government was to go in for a diplomatic solution, go in for talks, and maybe these talks will take very long. Some of those issues that we've had with China have sometimes taken 7 years, 10 years before they've been sorted out. So I don't have any problem with that. I'm not one of those who will say that let's declare war tomorrow and let's have it out with them as some others would probably do. I'm all for a peaceful solution, but I don't want to be a pushover, and I don't want to admit to any Chinese claims on India.
Absolutely. And when I said, Dr. Fuad Halim, for your satisfaction, yes, the disputed land that is being disputed is actually India's land. So let's not get into name calling on that.
Now
it is Indian land. It will stay Indian land.
Navika, it's for the BJP to decide whether they are on the same page with the government of India.
Well, it's also for you to decide, because this land, this disputed land, my friend, is disputed also in the time of the Congress party, with whom you have an alliance today.
Navika,
so you know, everybody has to do some soul searching in all of this. But let me get in Ishkaran Bhandari. Ishkaran Bhandari, do you think opposition leaders like Dr. Fuad Halim are putting or using this occasion for their own political expediency? Because this kind of questions, they've asked the Congress in the past, but today they are going and sitting with them, but today pointing all their guns at the BJP. Ishkaran Bhandari, floor is yours.
Navika ji, I am speaking after 40 minutes. If I can have uninterrupted time, or you can make Mr. Halim or anybody else re-speak. Can I have my uninterrupted time after 40 minutes? So because I'm speaking after a communist, let us start with the communist history. 1962 war, one of the tallest communist leaders, V.S. Achyutanandan, was in jail. He decided to be patriotic. He decided, let us donate our blood to the brave armed forces who are shedding blood to protect our borders.
Yesterday,
One second, Navika ji, I'm speaking after 40 minutes and the communist
conversation
with you please either lower his feeder or give him my time.
Why are you going back to 1962?
No, why not? You think the China problem began just in 2020, Dr. Fuad Halim?
Look at the,
you know, it's his choice. It's his choice, whatever he wants to speak on. Freedom of speech, Article 19, please. Ishkaran.
Yeah, definitely.
India is a democracy. You are not in China. You cannot shut my voice down. Then I'm quoting facts. Dr. Halim, this is India, not China. You can't shut my voice down if I'm quoting facts. So let me speak. Let me speak now. Let me speak.
Yes.
You cannot shut.
Go on,
Ishkaran.
Ishkaran.
You lower his feeder or you give him my time.
No, Ishkaran, go on.
The viewers have seen the panic. Now the viewers deserve to hear the reason behind this panic. India was having 1962 war with China. Our brave soldiers were shedding their blood to protect our territory. A communist leader, a tall leader, V.S. Achyutanandan, said, let us donate blood to the army. Let us give some money to the army fund so that we contribute to the army. And you know what the communist leadership decided? They said, we won't do it. V.S. Achyutanandan said, again, let us please do this. They later on took disciplinary action on him, and they again he will start, Navika ji, and they demoted him. They punished him for wanting to donate blood to our Indian army. So please, as a communist, you do not start talking about India-China relationships. You please are the last person to talk about defending our borders from China. Now let us come to the relevant issue which is we are coming to today. Mr. Nehru, once we lost 62 war, said, not a blade of grass grows here. Mr. Mahavir Tyagi had to get up and said, I am bald. Not a blade of grass goes here. So what should you do? Give my head to China? This is the history we are dealing with. It's not a new problem. But when we are coming to new problem, let us come to UPA also. During the UPA era, no less than an NSA report said 640 square kilometers have been lost to China. That is NSAB report of 2013 quoted widely in the national media. This is the history we are dealing with. And now lastly, when Navika ji, if you can lower his feeder, I don't know why is he panicking so much on knowing his own history. When we are now dealing with China, let us be clear what is the threat and what has been done on that threat. Navika ji, this is not the way. This is not the way.
Fuad Halim, what's your objection? What's your objection, Dr. Fuad Halim?
The Communist Party has that courage to ask the government of India for an authority.
Okay, you're asking the question. You're very courageous. You're very courageous. You're asking the question. Nobody is disputing your courage, Dr. Fuad Halim. But he has the courage to cite the history. Let him do that.
Yes. अरे इतनी दर्दनाक हिस्ट्री है तो देश से माफी मांग लो शायद देश माफ कर दे
misleading your viewers
शायद देश माफ कर दे आपको शायद देश माफ कर दे anyways if I can come now Navika ji to ending my point
okay 30 seconds Ishkaran Bhandari 30 seconds
thank you the nation can see the panic, the nation can Google what I have told. Now let me come to the fact. Navika ji, can I finish my point?
Yes,
there
make
is
your
so
point.
much of panic, I do not know what has happened. So, or what has happened is that the facts have been exposed. So there are two types of media. One is China's official media, one is China funded media. So what is happening, let us be very clear on that. On Galwan, on our borders, we have beaten China. There is no doubt on that. Also, the Chinese threat is a multinational threat which many nations are facing. For example, the FBI director says something as innocuous as TikTok is a danger. Indian government has banned it. FBI director still is not able to ban it. So we are into an era of threats with China. We have to resolve it. Either it will be a war or it will be a solution. And the Prime Minister should try his level best to find a solution without losing an inch of land.
Well, last word, Sudhanshu Trivedi ji, last word to you. I don't have too much time.
I just want to say the fight is not at just at the border level. I would like to remind that just 2 years back in the Apple factory, which is manufacturing the iPhone in Karnataka, there was a strike by the leftist trade union. And not only strike, the property worth crores of rupees was looted. Why targeted only to that factory which has shifted from China to India? Apple has made its first factory outside China in the world, and this time iPhone 14 25% were manufactured or assembled in India. So अब बात समझ में आती है कि जॉर्ज सोरोस से लेके न्यूज क्लिक तक जो कुछ हो रहा है वहां नहीं. और लास्ट में एक सेंटेंस कह दूं, मिस्टर फवाद अलीम रिप्रेजेंट CPIM. Sir, the CPI and CPIM got divided because one faction of Communist Party said that the Chinese invasion on India is good.
Well, I'm completely out of time on this debate. The question tonight is, India and China definitely have a problem and there is a confrontation going. But is there political capital being made out of this because elections are around the corner? Is there a completely, unedited version that is being put out by the opposition to try and corner the Modi government? That's the question. And does this really have a political agenda? That's the question we need to understand and ask ourselves. Thank you very much to all my panelists for joining me on Debate 1. On the other side, ladies and gentlemen, more skeletons are tumbling out of the Delhi rape-accused Babu's